We are ready to start chapter 2, and we're going to do slope-intercept form to start. We will write linear equations in two variables, meaning we're going to use an x and a y in our equations, and use slope-intercept form, and we will interpret the slope and intercept of a linear model. So, like the slope and the y-intercept mean things. We're not just going to slap numbers up on the screen. We're going to talk about what they mean in specific situations. Okay, so what is the slope-intercept form of an equation?
Y equals mx plus b.
That's exactly it. Y equals mx plus b. That is the slope-intercept form of an equation. So the objectives say that we're going to use an equation in two variables. What do you see with this equation? Four variables, okay? And so the y and the x are going to be the two variables that we're talking about. Every one of our slope-intercept equations is going to always have a y and an x, but we're going to have numbers that stand in the place of the m and the b. So do you remember, those of you who had pre-algebra last year, what does m stand for?
Slope.
M is the slope. So we're going to talk about slope here in just a minute. And then B is the y-intercept, which is weird that we have the letter y showing up again, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So the y-intercept. Okay, so M is the slope. Do you remember what slope is?
The rise over run.
Rise over run, that's exactly it. That's what I was hoping you would remember. Okay, so that is the same thing as saying the rise over the run of a line, okay? Rise over run is slope. And so, for instance, my blue line here on the screen, on your paper, I know they're not blue. Oh, great, I'm discovering right now that I've got some flaws in my system here. I'm going to try to, I can't quite reach all of my screen with the slate I'm writing on. So let me move that up a little bit so I can grab hold of it. All right. So the blue line here on the screen has a slope. And if you find any point on the line where it crosses the vertex of the graph, so where two of the graph lines join up, and you go to the next one, I can count from this one, the rise is up 1 and the run is over 2. So the slope of this line, the slope of the blue line would be up 1 over 2. Rise over run, up 1, right 2. And we always try to start and go that direction. This is a positive slope because it goes up from left to right. What about the red line?
Negative.
That's going to be a negative slope because it goes down from left to right. So if we talk about the red line there, my slope is still going to be rise over run, but this time, when I go from this point to this point, I can't go up.
You have to go down.
I have to go down, which would be a negative number, so it would be negative 1 over 1, okay? Which would simplify to negative 1. We want to write it as a simplified fraction or whole number. We don't want mixed numbers, right? And we'll talk more about that, I think, as we move forward. But
We don't want.
so is the slope of the red line negative 1 just between these 2 points, or is it extend further than that?
It extends farther than that.
Okay, because look what if I went?
Every point.
Okay, what if I went from my original point here to this one? That would be down 1, 2, 3, right 1, 2, 3. So negative 3 over 3 still simplifies to negative 1, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so the slope is the slope of the entire line, as long as it's a straight line. We're not talking about curved lines or bent lines or anything like that. We're talking about straight lines. All right, so that's a slope. Now, the other part of the equation is the letter B, and the letter B is the y-intercept. So what is an intercept?
Where it crosses something.
Where it crosses an axis. So we have a y-axis, that's this one. We have this guy over here that is our x-axis. And so our y-intercept of the blue line is a little bit tricky because it's not right in the middle, or it's not right on the line. But
It's negative 1. Well, it's
negative
1/2.
negative 1.5. So negative, and with the y-intercept, mixed numbers, even decimals are okay. I don't care about those. With our slope, I always want to leave it as a fraction because that fraction helps me count the rise and the run. With the y-intercept, doesn't matter if it's a decimal or fraction. So the negative 1/2 is that blue. And so if I know that my m is 1/2 of the blue line, and I know that my y-intercept is negative 1.5, can I write the slope-intercept equation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can write it as y equals 1/2 x, and then since it's a negative 1.5,
Minus.
I could say minus instead of plus. I could say minus 1.5. This is the equation of the blue line. Okay? And so we'll talk more about that in a second. Now let's write the equation of the red line. We know that the y-intercept is negative, whoops, I thought I switched to red. We know that the y-intercept is -1, the slope is -1. What is the y-intercept of the blue line?
The red line.
Did I say blue again?
Yes.
Sorry. What is the y-intercept of the red line? It's right here, crosses the y-axis at 2, and so b is 2, so we can write the equation y equals
Negative 1x.
-1x, and since it's a 1, I really don't need the number 1, just negative x plus 2. Okay, and so here, those are the equations, and so let's do this. I want to demonstrate why the equation, it's always so important for you to understand why the equation is what it is. So let's choose a point on the blue line. This point is on the blue line, yes? No, I don't want to choose, I'm sorry, not that one, I don't like that one. I'm gonna choose this one. Choose this point right here. What is that ordered pair?
That is -1, -2.
-1, -2. And so if this is the equation of the blue line, this ordered pair should solve that equation. So which one of those is my y value?
-2.
-2. So I'm gonna put a -2 in for the y value, and I'm gonna put a -1 in for the x value. Let's see what happens. -2 equals 1/2 times -1 minus 1.5. So whoops, didn't mean to do that. -2, and I've done it again. I did it again. I'm down here so low on the screen that I can't reach it with my slate. I can't write any lower than that, so I'm gonna go over here, up above it. So -2 equals -1/2 minus 1.5. What is -1/2 minus 1.5? No, negative minus -1/2 minus 1.5 would be -2. And that's what we want it to be. We want -2 to equal -2. Okay, so we can do that with any point on the line. We could extend this line out here 57 miles, and we could find some super weird x and y coordinate, 500 million, 375, I don't know what it would be, but way out there in the 57 miles away, and we can find that ordered pair, and it would solve the equation. So that equation solves every point on that blue line. And I know some of you, if you didn't have pre-algebra, I know you're feeling a little bit lost right now. That's like 2.5 months worth of pre-algebra in one problem.
Yeah.
So it's okay, we'll get you there. We'll get you there. Hey, all right, we're moving on. That's the first slide. All right,
That was like 2
so here we go. Here we go. Graphing a linear equation. And I'm gonna have to, all my graphs, no, I should be able to reach that. Okay, so what is the slope
4/5
and what is the y-intercept?
2.
Okay, so we're gonna start with B. B first. That's how I remember what to do. B first. So I want to B first, which means I'm going to start at the origin and count where? Up 2, because that's the y-intercept right there. And now I need to do the slope. Slope is rise over run. So I know the line has to go through this blue point. It has to go through that y-intercept. Do you understand how we got this point?
No.
Can you count to 2?
No.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Start at the origin, and if it's positive, we go up. If it's negative, we go down. Okay? So the y-intercept is up 2. So there's a point right there. The line has to go through that point. Okay? And so now I've got a slope that gives me a rise over a run. So starting at that point where I know the line has to go through, I'm going to count my slope. And so my rise is 4, count up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then count right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't go over there. 5. Okay, got to switch to this. Okay, so I've got to get that fixed. I didn't realize I was going to have problems like this. I knew I had problems. I just didn't know this was it. All right. So, then once we have 2 points, all we got to do is draw a line. Guys, rulers will be your friends when you're doing these on paper, because I want straight lines and I want them to go from edge to edge of the graph. All the way from one edge of the graph to the other. That's pretty close. All right, it's not a great line, but that's the way I roll. All right.
Wait, do you still have any rulers? Or
I will.
Stolen?
I've got 'em.
Stolen last year.
All right. That is graphing a slope-intercept line. You've got 2 things to do. You've got to find the y-intercept, and then you count the slope. So let's do another one. And why is there already a line on this graph? What's up with that?
We have that too.
It's already solved the.
I don't know why.
It's already us.
If you're supposed to sketch it, why did I put it on there? I don't know, but here it is. You can count it. So the y-intercept is -5. Good grief, I'm having all kinds of problems here with just the way this is oriented on the screen.
That one is -2 over
B equals -5, that's my y-intercept. And the slope is -3 over 4. So let's see if we got the right line on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goes right there. And then a -3/4 slope would be up 1, 2, 3 and left 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes through the right points. Or I can count down 1, 2, 3 and right 1, 2, 3, 4. It's pretty close. That line's not perfect, but it's close enough.
So you do either. So even if it's negative, you still go up.
You can do either one.
Up is positive, left is negative. So if you go up
And then.
and then left, it's still a positive slope. If you go down, that's negative, and then right is positive. So a negative and a positive together make a negative slope. Okay?
the left
Just
side.
follows the mathematical rules you always know. You already know. 2 negatives make a positive.
So
All right. Write an equation from a graph. So if we have a line on a graph, we just do the kind of the reverse process. If we have a graph with no line, we can, or an equation with no line, we can graph the equation. But if we have a graph, we can write the equation. So start at the origin, find your y-intercept. The y-intercept is 1, and it's an ordered pair. It's 0, 1, but the 0 is always, the x is always 0 on the y-axis. So that x value will always be 0 on the y-axis, so we just need the y value. And then the slope would be 1, 2, 3, down 3, right 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope is -3 over 4. So y equals -3 over 4x plus 1. All right. Write the equation of the line slope intercept form. So find the 2 things. I've got my y-intercept, and the slope is up 1, 2, right 1, 2, 3. So the slope is up 2, right 3, and the y-intercept is what?
It's like -2.
-2. Good. So y equals
2/3 x minus 2.
2/3 x minus 2. One little thing you gotta always pay attention to, by the way, is the way the graph is numbered. Yeah, like if this graph was numbered by 2s, it would be actually a y-intercept of -4, right? If they changed the numbering on the graph. You always have to count by the way the graph is numbered. So this graph is numbered by 1s, that's handy, that helps us, but you need to make sure.
She gave us a graph that's numbered by millions.
No,
Well, we could do it.
bad idea, Colin.
All right, and here's an extension, so what if we don't have a graph? Can we still find the slope of the y-intercept of 2 points?
Yeah.
Yeah, with a graph.
Yes, we can, and again, you're getting about 2.5 months worth of pre-algebra stuff in one lesson here, so I know you're feeling a little overwhelmed. It's okay, I'll get you through it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm not worried at all. You're gonna be fine. I just want you to trust me. So the first thing we need to do, we need to find our 2 things. I need to find the slope and the y-intercept. Slope, there's a formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. In pre-algebra, I make a big deal about this being a formula you need to remember for the rest of your math life. You will use this formula in pre-algebra, in algebra, in geometry, in calculus, in algebra 2. You will use this formula for every math class you take for the rest of your life. Okay? I promise. I've taken those classes, you use this formula. So, this is a formula you need to remember and be familiar with and able to use. So I've got 2 ordered pairs. I've got an x and a y here, and I can't write on that other one. My slate, my deal is cut off, so I can't go over there. So if we call this x1 and y1, we've got another ordered pair that's x2 and y2, right? And so I can just follow this formula. It would be 4 minus -2 over 3 minus -1. From now on, I will probably just do this. I would write it as 4 plus 2 over 3 plus 1. The formula has minus symbols in it, but when there's 2 negatives, it would be plus, right? So that's going to be 6 over 4, which is 3 over 2. So my slope is 3 over 2. I still need to know the b value.
Well, we could just use those
It's a
2
negative
points.
2, how is that fun? Oh, because it's.
Minus a negative
because
is a
the
plus.
formula subtracts, so it becomes.
Yeah, minus a negative is a plus.
Well, if
So,
you just look through your graph notes in your head, you can think if it goes, if you take -1.
no, we're not gonna create a graph of the thing. We're gonna do math. And so the math is this. We've got an equation. We know the slope-intercept formula of a line, right? We know y equals mx plus b. mx plus b. We know that. Okay? So do I know an x and a y value
Yes.
that the line goes through? Do I know the slope? So I can use all those letters and I can solve for b. So I'm going to choose 3, 4 as my point because those values are positive and it's easier to work with positive numbers. So I'm going to say y equals m times x plus b. Everybody understand where those numbers came from?
Yes.
3, 4 is an ordered pair. That's an xy value. And then I know the slope is 3 over 2. So I can use 3 over 2 as my slope. Now I just got to do math. 4 equals 9 over 2 plus b. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9. That's just multiplication. I'm not teaching you anything there. You know how to multiply.
I have no idea where like half those numbers came from. I thought.
Okay, the 4 comes from this ordered pair. That's the y value.
Like why?
Because it's the formula. Y equals mx plus b.
And the x value.
We've got a formula. We know where the letters go. The letters always go in that spot. So if I know what one of those letters is, I can put the number in the spot. So y is 4. M, we solved for. It's 3 over 2. So that's your m value. X is 3. Comes straight from that same ordered pair right there. Okay? Then I can do m times x is 9 over 2.
So then would it also work if y was -2 and x was the -1? Would you get the same answer?
You could, yeah, absolutely. Remember how every point on the line, the equation works for every point on the line.
That's why I was confused. I was like,
Yeah.
so are you just grabbing the numbers
Nope, you can use any point that's on the line.
Okay.
Good question, good question.
I got it.
Right. So, 9 halves, I forgot I could do this. 4 equals 4.5 plus 9. No, plus B. Whoops, can't read my own writing. Plus B, subtract 4.5, negative 0.5 equals B. So my slope-intercept equation would be y equals 3 over 2x minus 0.5. Okay, even for you guys that remember pre-algebra and stuff last year, I don't expect this to be like, now you've got this, we're ready for a test. And you guys that didn't have pre-algebra with me last year, I know that this we're gonna do some. We'll do a lot of these. Okay, you're gonna see this over and over again till it feels familiar. So let's do another one. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is find the slope. And I've got the equation, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Sometimes in the books they call this change in y over change in x, or difference of y over difference of x. There's lots of ways we can say this, but it's all this formula. Okay, so 6 minus 4 over negative 1 minus 5. x1, y1, x2, y2. So 6 minus 4 over negative 1 minus 5. I just put the numbers. The numbers go in the spots in the formula. The formula does the work. All you got to do is plug numbers in. 6 minus 4 is 2. Negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. So that is negative 1/3 for a slope. Now we use our slope-intercept formula. Y equals mx plus b. Which ordered pair should I use? 5 and 4. You know, that's going to be, I think, the easiest one to use because they're both positive. You could use the other one. It doesn't matter. So I would do 4 equals negative 1/3 times 5 plus b. I will say that for those of you that missed pre-algebra last year, the difference between what we're doing here, typically they make these come out as whole numbers in pre-algebra just because they're easier to work with. In algebra, we don't care if you use fractions or not. So things like 1/3 times 5, you wouldn't have seen that probably too much in pre-algebra. So 4 equals negative 5/3 plus b. So that's 1 2/3, right? So I'm going to add, is it okay if I just do that, add 1 2/3? I just simplified my fraction is all I did. So I'm going to add 1 2/3. What's 4 plus 1 2/3?
5 and 2/3.
So 5 2/3, I'm going to come over here because I'm out of room. 5 2/3 equals b. So there's my y-intercept. So I can write the equation, y equals negative 1/3 x plus 5 2/3.
Would you be able to turn that into a decimal or no?
No, because those would not be good decimals. Those would be repeating decimals. Fractions are always better.
Would be 5.666.
Fractions are always better for using slope, so that we can avoid those weird decimals. Now sometimes you do end up with decimals. I mean that, you know, I've used decimals, but usually I use decimals when they're terminating, when they're easy to use, or fractions when they're weird. And then, but you will, I mean, some of the problems we'll get into will have some weird decimals. All right, guys, I'm going to push the assignment to you. Will we have time in class to work on this tomorrow and answer questions? Yes. Don't panic. It'll be okay. All right, I promise. I'm going to get you through it. 22.